Hey everyone, welcome to the Thunk Tank Podcast. Thanks for joining us. So this episode can be summed up with this basic quote. The opposite of Donald Trump is an Asian guy who likes math. And the guy I'm talking about is presidential candidate Andrew Yang. If you're super hip to what's going on in politics, you've probably heard of him, but maybe even then you have not because there's so many people on the Democratic side running, and Andrew Yang is not one of the most popular ones, although he is growing in popularity. I saw this morning that he just recently cracked the top 10 candidates according to a CNN poll, so that's something. But we wanted to get the word out about him and just kind of talk through the issues ourselves. He's running on the platform of universal basic income. That's his main shtick, which is $1,000 a month for every U.S. citizen above the age of 18. It might sound ridiculous to you if you've never heard it, but there's a lot of mathematics and data behind it that explain that it might actually be one of the few solutions we have over the next 10, 15, 20, 50 years to deal with the disruption that technology is going to inject into our capitalism. So he's a really smart guy, smarter than anyone else I've noticed on the Democratic side. He's a genuine guy. He's the son of immigrants. His average donation is $11. A lot of cues that tell me people are noticing he's the real deal. So I really hope he gains popularity. He will be on the Democratic debate stage in June. So look out for him. Check out this episode. Maybe you can check out his website, or I'll post some links to interviews and whatnot in the blog post that goes along with this episode. So just check him out. We drink craft beer. We figured that's the best way to analyze politics. Let's see, anything else? Yeah, before the episode starts, just wanted to give us thanks to our Patreon supporters. Those donations help us keep this thing going, helps us devote time and energy to make the podcast, edit the podcast, keep it hosted on a website, all that stuff. So do consider supporting us on there for as little as $1 an episode, never more than $4 a month. And helps us keep the lights on, helps us devote more time, which means more quality with the podcast. With that being said, I think that's all I have to say. See you in the tank.
Attention humans, this is a Thunk Tank. Please insert this podcast directly into your nearest orifice for viewing pleasure.
Okay, you ready? Oh shit.
Welcome to the Thunk Tank. Welcome to the Thunk Tank.
Oh yeah. Yeah, there you go.
Come into our Thunk Tank.
Luke, don't switch to the other peanuts.
Welcome to the Thunk Tank. Come in the tank. We're thinking, and we're drinking,
and we're thunked.
Oh my god, I'm probably more beer than man if we go far enough back at this point.
All right, and I'm going on this end, so welcome to the Thunk Tank.
Welcome.
And
very exciting episode
welcome,
today.
Andrew Yang. It's very nice of you to come on, and
so excited.
Hopefully we can get into the issues.
I'm so excited we were able to get Mr. Yang here. Thank you for coming.
Mr. Yang,
yeah,
can you hear us?
Great stuff.
Are you guys coming in?
Yeah.
Looks like we lost him, actually.
The connection dropped?
Well, all right. So
that's a shame.
we'll have our team try to get him back, but
let's start by introducing him.
Yeah, let's start talking about him, and if he calls in,
we
we'll
start the
obviously
topic.
take the call.
We'll start the topic, and then he'll phone in at a certain point. So stick with us. Stay tuned. We'll get there. Just hang in there.
So when did you guys first become? Actually, let's do beer first. As we're waiting for him to call back in.
Out of the way. Oh, that's a good idea.
Was he Skyping or was he on the telephone?
Whatever we need, he said.
All right.
Yeah.
So
that's
anyways,
answer.
what are you drinking, Johnny?
I am drinking a beer from the brewery I work for, Joymongers Brewing Company in Greensboro, North Carolina. I'm drinking their Belgian blonde ale right now, which is just a really nice blonde. It's not overly sweet, and it's really smooth, dangerously smooth at 7%. But yeah, I don't think I've ever mentioned what brewery I actually work for specifically. But
Yeah, that's a big
I'm moving in
reveal.
a couple of months. As like, what are they going to do? Fire me?
It's like how it took us a year to admit
Yeah.
that you live in North Carolina.
Yeah, why were we so secretive about that? What
I
were
just
we hiding?
imagine like ISIS would show up at my door or something.
Or
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not a public person. I figured you keep it hidden, and then I was like, oh, but we're talking about
I feel much more
I'm
peaceful
putting
at
it
home
out
if I don't
publicly.
think anyone knows who I am or where I live.
Well, this is the end. We're phasing out.
It's
our-
like
our
zebras
southern
wanting to
satellite
blend in
studio.
to the pack, you know?
We're opening up
Yeah,
a
it's
Western
not that. I'm
satellite
not a
studio
zebra.
though, a West Coast.
Yeah.
studio.
Yeah, we're getting a West Coast studio.
Johnny's moving to Portland,
but
Oregon.
Great brewery located in Greensboro, North Carolina. They have another location in Winston Salem. Their barrel hall where they do all the North Carolina where they age all their beers, and they do the blonde a lot, and it's in like wine barrels and mix it with Brett and Macy's beers. And it's just a really good, solid base beer to do that with.
Nice.
And it was a nice day, and I felt like a strong, refreshing Belgian blonde ale. They don't mess around in Belgium. Their blondes are like 6, 7,
Yeah, you
almost
said that
8%
one's
alcohol.
that
That's
one's
really tall.
This one's
7%?
7.
Yeah.
Yeah, and American blondes are like 4 or 5, and this is smoother than
Inches?
some American
What do
blondes
we-
I've had. So.
Anyways,
Oh, ABV.
so
Sorry.
See what I did? I made the beer joke blonde. Am I talking about women or beer? You get it?
I hate that joke. I hate that. Can I get a blonde and maybe a couple of redheads? No, you can't. Get out of my bar.
Yeah.
It's not funny.
Actually,
Joke's never
the last
funny.
call already happened, so sorry.
that'd be a great like bar sort of theme or just gimmick where it's if you tell the bartender a joke and he is not satisfied, it says like specifies it when
Get
you
out.
come in or something. Yeah, bad jokes must leave, and then you can say that. Is that a thing?
Or assholes charged extra.
Yeah,
Just having a
exactly.
talk
Isn't
and
that
be
a
like,
debate? Like, can you deny service to anybody for any reason? That's a political
No.
debate, and that's what this
No,
episode is
there's
really
a-
going to be about.
This
There's
is
a
what
bunch of
Andrew Yang is
protections.
all about.
I know, but you
I don't know
can't.
if that's
There are
true.
a bunch of protections,
It's
but
not. He's not.
but there are reasons. Like you could say, you know what? I don't like you. I refuse to serve you. And as long as it's not for a reason that's protected, you can theoretically do that. Like most businesses have a sign that says, "We reserve the right to refuse service to anyone."
Well, that happened right around the corner
Yeah.
here recently. Did you hear about
I
that?
know, I
With
saw that.
That college student.
Now, Mike, a college student tried to enter a bar, and this bar has a policy that from 10 p.m. on, because it turns into a club, and it often
Yeah.
has lots of drunk fights, and it's in the dark, and
Oh, it
all
has
that
a
shit.
lot of strange things go on.
They
at
say
night,
no
yeah.
hats because they want everybody's face to be clearly visible to the security cameras.
They want to know if they kicked you out already and you got back in. They would need to be
Things
able to
like
spot
that.
You.
But of course,
Yeah.
somebody came with a religious wrapping. What do they call it?
It was.
The
Did you
turban?
see the picture?
It was like it was a little bit different than what I would have recognized
Was
as
he
like
Sikh?
a Sikh. Yeah,
I think so. Yeah.
and
Yeah, I forget what the specific.
and
word
they
is,
said,
but-
"Oh, we have like a no hat policy." And he was like, "Well, I can't take this off, like it's my religion or whatever." And then
It's a whole thing.
oh, I don't know how it went down. Literally, it was a bouncer that was like, not letting this person
Well,
in.
apparently he tried to get in again, and they refused him again. And then
Here's the real
people start,
question: If
you know,
somebody had a
freaking
"Make
out.
America Great Again" hat on, are they getting in?
Probably not.
Probably not, right?
Probably not. But that's a problem if they do.
Really? I think they would.
No, I think a bar like that's that strict.
What if they say
I think
it's
they
my
really do
religion?
have a policy. What, make America
Well,
great again?
that's where it gets tricky. Like, is a religion something that has to be codified exactly as a religion? Or, anyways, we're drinking Green by Treehouse
guys-
Brewing Company.
Have you guys seen the math
Fantastic,
hats he
terrific
wears?
beer. The
Andrew
who?
Yang wears. He wears hats that say math in them instead of MAGA, and it stands for Make America Think Harder.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It's such a great
So-
response to the vapid MAGA claim.
So-
like, what do you mean great again?
Ooh,
That's
that's
so
a good
vague.
word, vapid. I like that.
Here's what I like
Well
most
done.
about
I do
Andrew
too.
Yang, and
Johnny
hopefully
gets
I
an
can
A.
tell this to him if he finally calls in. But
Oh, he just texted me.
What did he say?
said he's trying to get through.
is he on the road or something?
I'm gonna work on it with him. I'm
Okay.
gonna coordinate with him to figure
All
that
right.
out.
If Joe's a little quiet in this conversation,
Yeah.
he's
yeah, he said
trying to
something
get
about
Andrew on the
he
line.
said something about a problem with automation, but we'll get into that later. Yeah.
Yeah, the call center we called about our telecom system is just a bad robot. Couldn't get a person.
So my favorite thing about Andrew Yang is my stoner.
All right,
like,
before
version.
you dive into it, let's introduce the guy a little bit. Since
I
he's
am.
not
I'm about
on
to.
yet.
I'm about to with one sentence.
Are you though?
There's an
Okay.
Asian guy running for president who wants to give everyone $1,000 a month.
Is that what he said himself?
That's his tagline
Yeah.
for himself, and I thought
Yeah.
that would be my tagline for him, regardless. Like,
Or me if I were him.
yeah,
I would like
mean,
to think
that
yeah.
that gets the gist of it. No Asian guys ever run for president. and no one, as far as I know, has run for president on the platform of everyone gets $1,000 a month.
No one seriously, at least.
Not to say he isn't serious.
Well, not to say that.
So we should. I really want to dive into UBI because I like the idea of
universal basic
there are
income.
A lot of problems with it too. What?
Oh, I was just saying universal basic income for anyone who hasn't heard the term UBI.
Yeah, UBI. We'll get into that. But just the other tagline he uses that I think is, even though he's like an outlier at like 2% right now, I think
he's
he
at 3
has a chance in the Democratic field. Is he points out that pretty much every presidential election in recent history has been a reaction to move in the opposite direction of the last president.
Yeah.
And then he says, well, I don't know what the opposite of Donald Trump is, but an Asian guy who likes math is probably that.
Yeah.
It's pretty
And
close.
it's like, yeah, that's not, none of that describes him. So it's a good start. But
Donald Trump is not Asian, and I have to assume he doesn't like math. Just by, if you like math, you probably have a very
Checks out.
nice grasp on logic,
Yeah.
the basic structure of whatever. And if Donald Trump is good in any respect, it would be pretend he never talks and just look at the results of the economy or something. You might guess somebody might be doing something good.
Yeah.
But considering, just watching one speech of his, I am just sickened. Again, I've heard people point to the economy and say, look at all these things that are better. Isn't that a good thing Trump did? I kind of think I don't care because I'm so disturbed by seeing just how much he can't talk and think.
Yeah.
That none of that matters so much.
Also, at what expense, too? People point out the obvious, okay, there's more jobs or there's lower unemployment or whatever.
Or
we have a $22 trillion debt. This is not sustainable.
This is what I like about, because we've done the Bash Trump episode.
Yeah, it's actually not
This is what I like about Andrew Yang is his response isn't what's the good sounding polls well political answer. He goes, well, let me look at the numbers and stuff.
He's very
I'll just try to
pragmatic,
explain that because it's easier to convince people you're right if you're actually right. That seems to be his approach.
And his approach is very unemotional and none of the anger emotions, none of the just attacking emotions.
But there's emotion in the way he's just very positive.
Right. He's an easygoing guy. He comes across that way, which is what everyone loved about Obama.
He wants to help
your
people.
pants time in 07, 08, and he was just had that calm.
Although, did Obama ever say the F word? Because I've heard Andrew Yang say the F word many times.
Yeah.
And it's awesome.
Yeah,
it feels very real.
Yeah,
very refreshing.
The current president said grab him by the pussy. So, it's all the
That's
rules.
a different kind of cursing, though.
Are over
I mean, all bets are off.
now.
The way Andrew Yang says the F word is not I want to fuck that girl. It's let's fucking
no, I know.
do
I'm just
this.
saying all the etiquette rules and stuff, all the weird shit that the English royalty still follow, all those things that we had enshrined here, they're out the post-Trump. That stuff's all changed.
And that might be a good thing. It's
It
we
might
don't
be,
have to
but
be fake character politicians anymore.
I just want to say, because I like that Yang is knowledge based and look at the numbers, is because he actually goes on Fox News all the time and will take them calling him a socialist and bashing him and misrepresenting him just so he can have a chance to present his case.
Well,
They actually have pretty good conversations. All his Fox News ones have been mostly pretty decent.
Right, and that's when they always throw at him. The economy's great right now, and you're a businessman. You're trying to say you can do better than this businessman who is more successful than you, and the economy's great. And he goes, yeah, it's propped up by a tax cut.
Yeah.
It
It's
gives
a
an
temporary
artificial thing because
thing.
you're not
And a
cutting.
huge deficit,
we haven't cut any services really.
Right.
We cut taxes for everybody. It's better for the rich than the poor, but everyone's got cut a little bit, and then you didn't cut any of the spending. So yeah, that's going to boost the economy because you're still pumping money into it.
And it doesn't
elsewhere.
address the fact, his main platform, which is that most of the jobs in America will be automated within the next 5 to 10 years. And it's what are we going to do about that before it happens? So let's say, for example, retail is the most common job, I think. 30% of malls are projected to be closed by the next 4 years, within the next 4 years. Because Amazon is you can do everything on Amazon that you can do at a mall.
The first question is,
Except try on clothes.
should we do something before it happens? You said before it happens. A lot of people would say we should wait until it happens and then react to it.
Until way too many people are out of work.
Because you don't know that'll happen. What if it creates a bunch of new jobs? Drone repair services or some bullshit that people.
Won't there be drones to repair the drones?
Well, that's his point. Is that it's
Eventually.
better to be proactive and try to address it now than to wait and all of a sudden wake up one day and realize. I mean, the example that he gives a lot that I've heard of is what's going to happen with self-driving cars, particularly with self-driving trucks, right? Where all of a sudden it's going to happen in stages, right? Where this company decides, okay, we're going to buy, a fleet from Tesla, right? And that's going to automate away 70,000 truck driver jobs. That's not the end of the world in that moment, but then another company does it, and another company does it, and then all of a sudden 5 years go by.
It's a 10-year, 15-year problem. Especially the driving thing is going to be trickier than other things.
So
like
his point is, like, it's not like an apocalypse that you wake up and it's just like, oh, nobody has jobs all of a sudden. It's actually something
But if they
that
can,
all of a sudden you realize is a huge problem when maybe it's
when you're going over the ledge.
Question is, like, what is too late exactly, right? And his argument that I hear he makes about UBI is along the lines of, well, worst case scenario, we get ahead of the problem because, and I think he's probably right in some sense that we're going to have UBI eventually. It's going to have to happen, right?
A few of the things. Should we just get into UBI right now?
We could go into a dystopia instead. Why not?
I mean,
nothing stopping it.
But isn't that, Johnny? Isn't that because I remember? I think you were the one who first who introduced me to Yang, and I remember you mentioning UBI, and he was the first person that I know of who's been taken seriously in terms of proposing it. But I mean, isn't that essentially? I mean, that's his main platform, right? It's that.
Yeah, that's his main campaign promise.
He calls it the Freedom Dividend.
Won't be able to get it done till the second term, but like it's the long-term goal to address the automation problem, and he points to it directly as what caused or what helped Donald Trump win an election against all these projections.
That's one of the best explanations I've heard about why Trump won. Like the racism example, which is like all these racist asleep people woke up and decided to vote. That doesn't really make much sense. There's no proof or indication of that. Not to say that Trump doesn't have racist elements to him and his
even if they don't view
them
themselves as racist, they think I don't hold any hateful feelings against people based on skin color or whatever. But because of the fat cats on Wall Street, the Mexicans are taking my jobs. Like I'm sure he sold a lot of people on that.
Right.
No, it's because of the fat cats on Wall Street funding venture capitaling in Silicon Valley. The computers are taking your jobs.
Right.
And that's a hard sell. That of itself.
Well, you can't blame anyone. It's like, wait, this is just the way it is, cuz. I mean, people are calling the automation thing the fourth
the automation wave
revolution.
is happening. And I think he uses the trucks as an example because it is slower. It's going to be more difficult than other things. But if they can automate away something as complex as driving an 18-wheeler, they can do it. They can definitely get rid of your Allstate agent and
the first thing to go will be call centers, right?
Well, they're already going. They've already been
right. I mean, it's a transition thing. So like any grocery store has self checkout and a few humans, and then there's always one human looking over the self checkout, right?
Which is a shame because those are shitty jobs, kind of to begin with.
Well, that's the ones that go first. That there's not complexity like truck driving. It's just like.
But that's
check someone out of a store,
and that's the sad thing is that more and more I feel like because other jobs have been automated away, the types of people who I feel like when I was a kid, we would see other kids working at grocery stores. You would see high school kids and college kids, which you still see today. Yeah. But I feel much more.
You see a lot more adults though.
It's mostly. I would say 50, 60, 70, sometimes-year-old women.
People that have been forced back out and then back into the workforce.
Right, exactly. And these are great jobs.
Trump's record unemployment levels don't account for that. The severely underemployed, where it's like I used to make a salary and had a mortgage payment. Now I crash on my sister's couch and I can barely afford my share of the rent, even though I work full time.
And this is what
there's definitely been a shift to shittier jobs.
This is what Yang points out too about automation, which is a big. Part of the premise of UBI and why I mean I think he's right to say that it's essentially inevitable, but it's this idea that
Judgment Day is inevitable.
you do have more wealth creation, like the creation of more wealth, but it is being concentrated in fewer and fewer hands, right? That's sort of the main premise of like what's happening with automation, where all of a sudden, these companies are turning huger and huger of profits, but there's fewer jobs actually paying out those dividends, right?
It's all about the distribution of the wealth. And if a company is set up so that 90% of the wealth goes to the company and shareholders and you employ the fewest humans possible, yeah, it's going to have a long term. Even if that company can do it in a profitable way, if every one of them does it, which they're going to, you don't have a customer base anymore.
Yeah, it's like a weird tragedy of the commons in that sense, right?
It is. So you have to pump money
Survival.
into the system somewhere.
Well, customers are your shared resource, essentially, right? You want to compete for them, but if you become so efficient that you don't even have you have a shell of a company compared to how many people you used to employ, I mean that does make sense that could be a problem one day, because I think what he points out too, like you were saying too, about whatever this is called, the next wave of industrialization.
He calls it the fourth industrial revolution.
Yeah, it's going to be very different. It's not like, oh, we went from horses to cars. Guess what? You need an entire factory of people to put cars together. Still, right?
Yeah,
yeah. You lost, like
that's
horseshoe
the
makers.
argument for this.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the argument for this, but it's harder to believe, because why would you ever need to hire humans? Like, our system is so geared. That's a system that was like, yeah, get more workers, ship them over from Ireland and give them free land. Like, we need more workers.
Yeah, we need labor,
more bodies. And it's going in the opposite way now. But it's really the same, because the other industrial revolution, what was government's role in that? It was being captured, regulatorily captured by the businesses to help them increase profits. But at the same time, the people try to get the government to push back to make sure they get their fair share out of all this prosperity. So traditionally in the 20th century, what is that? Guaranteeing jobs, good paying jobs, making companies give medical benefits and treat their employees with rights and stuff. Like things that basically we want them to do now, but on like a more nebulous, like societal level. So I think that's why it's a harder sell, and that's why everyone, including me, when I first heard it, someone described it, I was like, fuck that, that's bullshit. You can just give money away, it's stupid. And then you hear about it and you think of the alternatives of how to keep the money moving in our economy so that it doesn't just seize up one day.
Yeah.
It's because a lot of that's just about the speed of the money moving. So if you spread it out, like you give a billionaire another $1 million, if he spends it, it loses its value. The weight of that money when it's gathered together, you lose it if you spread it out too much. So like,
also the idea is that a billionaire with another $1 million doesn't spend all that million.
Whereas if you give $1 million, what is that? Thousands? If you give 1,000 people $1,000 out of that,
they'll probably spend it on groceries and
on shit around town. Yeah, and it's like, of course, some people are going to spend it on whiskey and cigarettes and hookers, but whatever. That doesn't bother me.
Yeah, that's ironically sort of, and it's funny because even I've seen when he's asked this question, he kind of goes, "Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question."
Which I think is a great angle, because it's like,
well, he's very honest.
I have an inclination towards freedom.
Yeah, he's very straightforward because basically part of his premise with UBI is that, okay, we'll give you $1,000 a month, but you forfeit these other benefits.
Well, if you're on welfare already, you
on
have
disability,
to choose.
Yeah, you would have to choose.
If you get $800 on welfare a month, you'll get $200 more from the Freedom Dividend.
Right. Which,
I mean, if
by the same
people,
token, if you blow that
get
money, you were going to blow it anyways, whether or not the government was holding you accountable anyways, which is kind of his point too. Right?
But
I think that's why people are so confused about him. It's like, are you a libertarian? Yeah. Are you a socialist?
No, he calls himself a capitalist humanist or something.
Well, I think he's a pragmatic person, is what it comes down to, right?
He says he's a humanist capitalist. He wants capitalism where instead of numbers and dollars, we drive it by like human factors.
Yeah,
which is like a noble thing. But,
like instead of GDP, that you have some measure of the economy that includes are people actually surviving.
Or are they happy?
There's one country that does that.
Which they're not.
Bhutan in Asia is a really interesting, progressive little country. Like I think the law is the majority of the country has to be untouched, like forest at any given time, and it's really tiny, so that's hard for them to do. But they use gross national happiness instead of gross domestic product because they get a lot of. I think there's like a bunch of temples there. I think they get a lot of tourism from the area, so they're able to have an economy based.
And have they been to the moon?
Ideal.
Have they been to the moon?
How many times have they?
Do they have rovers on Mars? Yeah, that's what I thought.
No, but they're probably a lot happier than you. I mean, it's
is
not
that
your
the point
rover.
of life, Johnny? Happiness, really?
Luke, I didn't get to ride a rover on the moon. What the fuck?
Yeah, it's not the SS Luke on the moon. We're riding
yes,
around.
it is. I'm part there. I pay taxes every year.
Although, did you hear?
I get all the money I pay in taxes back every year.
Trump just bounced up NASA's budget by like $1.5 billion
for Space Force.
He wants to get to the moon before the end of his second term. Yeah,
by 20. What is it? 2024.
He wants his name attached to like
he wants
we went
by
to the
end
moon.
of his 2020
I got no problem with that. Fuck it.
Yeah.
He wants to make the moon great again.
We should
Mama.
be researching
Isn't it like an
space.
It's like an all-woman space force, though, right? Like, isn't that the project?
Huh?
Like that's it's the new moon program.
I haven't
Yeah,
even
it's
heard
part of the
about
Space
it.
Force.
Honestly.
It's called Artemis
Make
or
America
something. Yeah.
go to the moon again. Magma. Bam, new hats.
Well, I'm very excited for that.
It's hey Frank,
I was
yeah,
way
it's
too
me.
proud
You
of
know those MAGA hats we ordered? Can you just add one more letter, like for half price?
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
Magma?
I told
Is
you
that
the Trump story
Yeah, we're
where-
going to strip mine the moon next.
where when
I
they
think
told
there's
him
lava, hot liquid metal under there.
he told
cool, man.
he told some people at NASA that he wanted to get to Mars by the end of his first term, and they just kind of looked at him and said,
They're
"That's
like, you know, those missions take like years and years and years to plan.
even
right?
the orbits to line up, right?"
Yeah.
And then he
Yeah,
said,
it's like they
and then he
won't
said
be
to
in the
them,
right place.
But what he said to them
He didn't
was,
get it.
"Well, how much would it cost?" And they said, "You can't do it." He said, "No, you don't understand. What I'm asking you is, if I gave you a blank check,
Yeah.
how much money would
How
it
many
take?"
trillions of dollars would it be?
Yeah, he
I
said,
want to build the
He
first
he said, "You have
hotel
the whole
on Mars."
budget." He said, "How much money would it take to get there by the end of my first term?" And the people claim who were in the room said that the NASA people looked at each other for a minute as if to say, "Is he serious?"
Like,
And
should we say a number?
exactly? And then they look back
Yeah,
at Trump.
2
and said,
trillion.
Yes, you can't do it. Like, you can't get to Mars within.
Because we don't want to take
4
your money
years.
and then not do it because you can't do it. That's what
You
we're
can't
saying.
do it. Yeah, and he's
And it'll undermine.
I think he said he wanted to do it
They made
in
the
his
right
first
call.
term, but ideally his first term, and if not, by the end of his second term.
However, if somebody came out to me and said, like, "Hey, man, can you put a new fence in by 5 p.m.? I'll give you a blank check. What will you take?" I would just take the check and figure out how to put a fucking fence up.
I wouldn't trust that they actually.
Yeah,
have
that's
the
why you're not
money.
in charge
I would
of
assume that
NASA,
it's a. Yeah, I would assume that it's a check that's going to.
It's also why you're not in charge of building a fence. How many times have you ever gotten that?
Yeah, Lucas. Somebody comes up to you.
I wouldn't know where to start.
Yeah, exactly.
I'd go to Home Depot and just
Exactly.
be like, they'd be
Where's-
like, "Do you need help?" I'd be like, "Yes."
You'd be like, "Where's the fence?"
They would
section?"
find
And
you
you'd be like,
walking
"All
around
right,
the aisles
you're lost."
carrying a post going, "Mom,
yeah.
Mom," just totally lost.
Yeah,
Trying to open all the fake doors.
Johnny, let me ask you
Some
this.
of this before you crack that one.
No,
All right.
let me ask you this.
But there's
Because
problems with the UBI because, like, someone that lives near you guys that lives in Section 8 housing, that's worth more than $1,000 a month.
But would
Already.
you lose that? Would
So
you
they're
lose that on
getting-
UBI though?
No.
I'm saying
I
they
don't think,
wouldn't get it then.
I don't think
'Cause it
those.
caps
I
out
think
at
it's just
1,000.
welfare type things.
Yeah, I think
that
it would have
cut
to-
against
A
it.
lot of proponents of no, that would count. I'm pretty sure that's a federal benefit. So I'm pretty
but
sure
these
you
are the
wouldn't-
things that
you
would have
to
be
give up
figured out.
that up to get your UBI.
So there are
But-
probably limit cases where I'm not sure what would count as like against your freedom dividend. It's
Yeah.
$1,000
Some-
and it gets subtracted. So if you get welfare for
Yeah.
$2,000 a month, you'll obviously opt to just stay on welfare.
Right.
But his main argument is that so many people on welfare never go back to work because they're
Right.
like, I don't know if I can work. Two,
It's
I won't get my
disincentivizing
disability check
work,
if
yeah.
I even attempt to get a part-time job, which I need to survive. So they end up just barely surviving on their welfare, and that just seems like the
You'll
safest
lose your
option.
disability. You'll lose your disability if you get caught like raking leaves or something.
Exactly.
And they're like, well, if you can do
You
that,
said
you
you
can
had a
work.
bad
Go get
back,
job
like,
at
what's up with
McDonald's,
the
But
leaf raking.
who's going to catch you? Are we really paying people to go around watching people rake leaves?
Yes, I bet they are.
Yeah. Because
Who?
there's so
What
much
job is
disability fraud because there's no other option.
But that's what I mean. Like, I think that's
Are there
part of his point,
disability
right?
like audit agents out there?
of course, yeah.
Like
Maybe
bounty
I'm one.
hunters or
How
something.
the fuck would you guys know?
We're setting up.
I could be like a Nielsen
commenters.
thing.
Well,
like
no,
I do the
also,
ratings.
Usually, people on disability they have other health issues and they're very expensive for their
Right.
insurance company.
Yeah.
So the insurance company will hire a private eye to see if you're faking it, so they can sue you and stop
right,
giving
okay.
you care, even if you are somewhat
sense.
sick. They can just lose because you're a loss as a client at that point. You're not going to get healthier once you break your back. Like
Yeah.
you're just going to constantly need benefits from them.
Right.
So if they could find something illegal you do, they can drop you as a client. It's a really fucked up, pervasive system of encouraging people to be like to be. I don't mean this meanly, but to be pathetic, like to be as
Yeah.
pathetic as
Well,
possible.
So he's
That's part
saying
of his
that if you
argument
had
too,
the
yeah.
if you had the option to say,
It's not
instead of the
empowering at all.
$1,700 I get on whatever welfare I'm on, I'm going to take my $1,000 and actually get a goddamn job at the grocery store to make up the rest.
Yeah.
And
Well,
then
a lot of
you're
people,
making
the
a living
problem with-
wage, and you even have time to think, how can I get myself into the next level of the hierarchy? Like maybe I become a manager at the grocery store, or maybe I plan
No, bro, the
save up
grocery store
enough money
jobs
and
are
go back
gone.
to school to get trained for this thing. It gives you more of that flexibility to examine your life as they say, like if your leg's caught in a
if you-
crocodile's mouth, you're not thinking about tomorrow. You're thinking about right now. If you're living paycheck to paycheck, you really can't think ahead to like the level of like, oh, gee, if I go to school for 2 years, I'll have 10,000 in debt, but then I get this job and pay that. You can't do those equations when you're desperate.
But if $1,000 a month in Winston-Salem, let's say $2,000, you're living with a significant other. $2,000 a month in a household here versus San Francisco is hugely different. Like,
It's
you
true.
can
It doesn't
pay your
address
rent
the cost
here.
of living problem.
Yeah, you can cover your rent, utilities, and have money left over. So if you're both working, you can do well. So some people say UBI should really be fixed to like in some sort, either the housing for the area or local.
I could see it being fixed to
costs.
location. I wouldn't be against that necessarily.
That gets hairy then, because now people are going to start moving. You know what I mean? Because then, are you really helping that town in Mississippi if their adjusted UBI is $320 a month, and that doesn't?
And let's
help
make this
them
clear.
there. And someone in San Francisco, you're giving them $4,000 a month. It's not fair then all of a sudden. Yang's proposal at least is fair in that everyone's entitled to it, and as a dividend, it pays the same amount out.
It's a
You
right
all are
as being a
one
U.S.
shareholder.
citizen that you get it. Like,
Yeah.
and the point is,
'Cause it's
if you
per
make
person.
if you make $5 million a year, you're getting this $1,000 a month. If
You
you
still
make
get $12,000
$1,000 a
extra from
year,
the
you're
government.
getting you're actually making $13,000
Can't we
a
cap
year.
it though? Isn't that silly? If you make $1 million a year, I don't think the government should give
So
you an extra
I had that
12,000.
question,
Also,
and
there's so few people making $1 million or more a year. Like, do we really need to give them that money?
Well, then the point would be that it doesn't matter. But I think the reason that is once you make it a right, you like his argument isn't that this is good for the economy. It's that we should think of this at this point in this economy. It's like a fundamental right. Like you need a basic amount to exist.
Well, he also said
And
it's an
it's not
opt-in.
clear
you don't,
that,
you don't
like-
have to accept the money. Like if you make $1 million a year, you can decline the $1,000 a month.
Oh, you can decline
Well,
it.
no,
You can
yeah,
opt
no one
out.
would do
I
that.
think you have to. You might even have to. I don't know how it
Opt
would
in.
work, but
No, you don't have to opt in. I think that's one
Yeah,
of
you
his
do.
main arguments.
It's opt-in.
he said he said that you don't have to take the money. So I would assume you would have to fill something
when you
out
turn
to take the
18,
money.
you just opt in. That's all. You just have to prove you're a citizen and that you're
Oh, okay.
18. So
You would
I'm
probably
assuming
you would
Social
probably have to
security
fill out
number,
something
birth
on your taxes
certificate,
or
any
Yeah.
of those
something,
things.
It would be something like that, and you would
But
start
wouldn't it
getting
just
the
So
money.
cause
let's say-
rampant inflation? If I'm
That's
renting,
the question
if
that
I'm renting
I don't know why
to
anybody
some-
hasn't asked that.
If I'm renting out a bunch of slums, his argument is that everyone's getting the money all at once, so that there'll be more opportunities for competition. Because
Right,
now, if
'cause
you
it
see
can't-
someone
inflation
price
can't
gouging,
cut-
you can go in
yeah.
and undercut.
It can't
But
catch up,
That's
yeah.
not true in a lot of things. Like housing is a very fixed thing. If you rent out the slums in this area of the city, and all of a sudden you know they have more money, and you can just take a big chunk of that, they're still pretty much as desperate as they were before. You know, you're getting a big chunk of that money. You can put the squeeze on them and get like. Does it really
Yeah.
give people enough?
Was there
to,
any
to give
precedent
them the
for this?
freedom to get
Yes.
out of those?
Like, have other countries
situations?
done this?
Other states. Alaska's had universal basic income for years.
Yeah, but how much do they actually give?
$2,000 a month.
No, they don't.
Yeah.
It varies. It depends on.
What does it depend on?
I forget. I think you get a little more if you have like kids and dependents in the house. I think 2,000.
Oh,
are
yeah, you
the
might get more
maximum.
for dependents, maybe. 2,000
And it's a
is maybe
year.
the maximum.
It's not 2,000 a month. It's 2,000.
Yeah, I
a
don't think
year.
it's that much.
Oh, you're right.
It's a lot,
It was a yearly
It's a lot
thing.
less
Yeah.
than ours.
Well, that's a lot less than what he's proposing because that's a much like the 2,000 a year is nice. That's
So,
good to have.
the first thing he'll
$1,000
say
a month
when-
is
12,000 a
life-changing.
year.
Yeah, if I had $1,000 extra a month, my life would be relatively pretty
Well,
different.
I think that's the point is our lives would be radically different,
Yeah.
right?
yeah.
But wait a minute. Wouldn't
a
everybody
millionaire's
be
life
running
would
their
be no
AC?
different.
Wouldn't all the poor people that don't afford air, like I live in the South, and the mark of if you're living comfortably is if you can afford air conditioning. If you're so broke that you don't have AC in your house, that's what I consider to be poor here. 'Cause it's 100 fucking degrees and you're
Yeah,
sitting in the
you're
heat 'cause
miserable
have
if
to
you don't
spend
have
money on-
AC.
Nobody would not spend money on that unless they couldn't. in
Even
my-
an
my
alcoholic
opinion.
would like buy the air conditioner before they buy more bottles
Right, yeah. So
because
but-
you don't enjoy being
so
an
everyone
alcoholic when
goes
you're
out.
so hot.
Everybody goes. Let's say everybody now goes out and says, "I could buy a window unit for $600, and I can afford to run the electricity now to have AC. We have AC." Now,
Yeah.
that puts a huge strain on the electric company. There's so many more people pulling power. They're going to have to increase and charge more. So now everyone's power bill is going to go up.
Right.
Like, wouldn't there be a lot of like terrible cascading events like that? That's just a little
that's
random
just a different type
ones
of
we haven't
inflation.
thought of.
It's a different type of
Or like
inflation.
car companies will just start charging way more for
But
cars.
that's the thing,
they all
too, is-
do it at the same time.
Well, that's the fundamental problem with how that exists short term is that the idea that, oh, it would be great if everybody could afford a car doesn't work because there's not enough infrastructure for that. You can't
to
have
make
everybody-
cars for everybody.
If
you
everyone
can't
had
have
a car,
everybody
no
driving
city
car.
would be able to move at
wouldn't
all.
be able to function exactly.
Yeah.
So and the longer term goals or ways to deal with that, if you start to get into real, not even that speculative of territory, but even stuff that somebody like Elon Musk is trying to do, right? Which is build these tunnels, because it is along the lines of this realization that there is a scarcity of availability of transport in that sense. You can't have more people drive cars in a lot of places. It's already inundated, right? So I think to a certain extent there's like short-term benefits, but then in terms of like long-term dealing with it, I think you're right, Johnny. Inflation.
Well, he
sort of
said it
staggers.
will the Freedom Dividend will start at $1,000 a month, but it will increase with inflation.
It will have to increase. Yeah, exactly.
And then the
try to
other
keep up with it, yeah.
complexities of how a complex economy works, like I don't fucking know really what's going on, and I challenge anyone that
Well, I
feels
think
like they have a
very
strong
few
opinion
people
on anything
actually
about
know.
the economy. Like, what do you know? Are you an economist? Great, then
Well,
teach me something.
I have an opinion.
We know you believe the plebeians shouldn't have opinions, Luke, in your ivory fucking tower.
I-
We've been
I-
over
I
that
did a
whole
previous
episode on it.
All I
in
can
our
say
defense.
is when I see
Like, share, and
candidates
subscribe.
talk, like I've seen a lot of the Democratic candidates, which there is. Like,
He watches
way
a
too
lot
many.
of YouTube, Johnny, so you should probably shut the fuck up and listen to what
Pretty
he has
much
to
an
say.
expert.
Yeah.
I have an internet connection.
Yeah. He
But
has
isn't
three-
that
he has
also the
3 jobs and
nightmarish
an
version?
internet
Is
connection.
people just start living on UBI, but they can't buy anything with it anymore because it's just so undervalued and everyone has access to it. So it's just scarcity for availability.
I'm going to have the
reasons.
non-cynical.
And then we just sit on our phones and we just play in our virtual world all day while
Bro.
the world melts
Well, I mean, it could
around
turn
us.
into
you
like
gotta read- you
the
gotta read
Wall-E
it.
movie where
No,
they
you
show all
gotta-
the fat people in
Dude.
the wheelchairs.
Yeah.
just-
Do you know who nailed it?
all inclusive,
60,
baby.
70 years ago, Kurt Vonnegut, player piano.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly what's
I wanted to
happening.
talk about the Reeks and Rex. I didn't know when to bring them up.
You can bring them up now.
about
'cause
this,
I think
though?
I think it fits into that is.
I'm going to
UBI.
grab a beer while you talk about that book real quick.
Can I have my
So good.
non-cynical view though of like maybe people will actually find a when they have the time and the space that a universal basic income can provide, like they're not just always immediately worried about their next paycheck and making like maybe
Well, so this is part of his
I want to
premise.
submit that I want to put a faith in the general quality that human beings on the whole, not everyone, but human beings on the majority will move their life in a more positive direction when they have
Well, that's his whole
a
premise.
freedom dividend.
And that's what he talks about. Where if you look at the increased rates.
Oh, Johnny, we just poured a new
drug
beer
use and
too.
like methamphetamines and.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Well, it's along the lines.
Well, if you look
this is
at
what
all
player
the-
piano gets into
if you look
as
at
well.
data-
It's sort of like this lack of purpose and this underlying depression of
Meaninglessness.
Even if I do have a job because the government says like, well, you guys dig holes and you guys fill them in and you'll be paid well for it because
If you know your job is not leading to anything,
Isn't that what
But it's still
Bernie's talking about?
puppeteering.
The guaranteed job, the guaranteed
Is he?
employment
I haven't
benefit.
heard
they're
of it.
no.
calling
This
it?
is. I mean, you could think of it that way conceptually, but at least how he markets it and conceives of it himself is that this is a right of citizenship,
No,
just
no,
like
no.
you
I'm
have.
talking about Bernie. I said Bernie is pushing guaranteed work instead of giving money. Which
Oh,
to
I see,
me
I see.
sounds like actual socialism.
well, that,
yeah.
that
You have
sounds
the
like the
government
Reeks and
creating
Rex from
fake corporations.
I think
to
it's a silly
justify
thing to say.
handouts.
If you think people need money, then give them money. If you think they need work, then
money, please.
I also like how Yang, for the record, I've heard him state that he calls it. I think somebody asked him. They said, "Well, why don't you call it whatever else?"
universal basic income.
Yeah, or
I
whatever.
I like
and he
the
said,
idea
"I
of-
call it
yeah.
the freedom dividend." He said, "Well, because it polls better."
Yeah, he's like, yeah, I'm a
better.
math guy.
He's very pragmatic, and he says, "Yeah, it's better." He said he
People
goes-
always
he
say
goes, "Yeah, it's-
UBI to him, and he
it's-
corrects them. He's
yeah, he
like
goes-
freedom dividend.
He goes, "Yeah, it's better branding," and that's what
yeah.
that's what really stands out to me
Yeah.
about him. And he said too, I think it was it might have been when he was on Joe Rogan, and they asked him, Joe asked him, "Do you think you can really win?" And he started breaking down the numbers of the Iowa caucus, and he said, Yeah, so I'm not really concerned with whether or not I can win. I'm concerned with whether or not I can convince, I forget what the number was. I think it was 60,000 Iowans that they want $1,000 a month, because that's the first step. That's the first thing he has to do in order to
you know what's so
elect.
clever about this thing?
That's so smart, though.
It's
right?
not talking in theory to people. It's not like, do you believe people should work for their thing or lift yourself up by your bootstrap?
It's not as shitty
like,
as
do
it
you want
sounds, even on the
$1,000 a
surface,
month?
being like, yeah, I'm trying to buy votes. Here's $1,000. But because it's really, he's saying, it could seem like that on the surface, but it's the idea of, instead of addressing problems with like, all right, well, let's come up with the most punitive thing to try to punish people to keep the costs low, and it gets carried away anyways because it'll become it just happens with a lot of government programs. Or like, let's just have an approach of incentivizing people to do better. And I've been reading about other people that have like professors and stuff. I wish I had stuff actually citable here, but I'm an idiot.
Just make it up.
But other people that
Also works.
are proponents for a UBI. And like one idea I read, which sounded really interesting, is so at 18 you get $1,000 a month, but if you go to school, they'll give you $2,000 a month.
Oh, so
if you go to work for volunteer for a governmental organization, like if you join the Peace Corps, you'll get extra.
Make incentives in various directions.
Right, yeah. Or if you go into like, let's look at the top 10 like least underemployed fields. If you go into those, we might, or if you go whatever,
You
if you
can
go into
manipulate
medicine, a type
like,
of medical
the decisions
field
people make. But
we'll
people
give
would
you a
argue the
little
free
more.
market does that already, right? If Google really needed like the best computer programmers to be coming up from schools, they would make that a career path that's obvious to choose because you get $1 million a year.
Not always, though.
Or whatever.
If the schools just suck, there's not an environment for. There was a big
takes a long
demand
time.
for clockmakers in the 1600s, and just that nobody knew how to do it. They all sucked at it. They were dying
because
of
most
syphilis
people were
while they
dying.
worked
Yeah,
on it.
dying of smallpox.
Yeah, countries
time to
would.
make
What was the
clocks.
longitude prize in England? It was like 10,000, 50,000
lordship
pounds
too,
or
wasn't
something,
it?
which is like millions and millions of. Then like nobody gave that much money to an individual.
Well, that's
but
what
the
Google
country
does,
of
yeah.
England was
Google,
like, this
Google
is valuable
does that with the
enough.
X Prize.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, same kind
Peter
of
Diamandis?
idea, but
Great guy.
and there's still no easy
He's
way
the
to
founder
get to
of the X Prize.
get to
Oh,
Mars.
see? You could just say that whenever somebody mentions the name. You don't. Great guy.
Great guy.
Yeah. Samuel
Johnny,
Jackson,
what's your
great
new
guy.
beer?
Yeah. Oh man! All right, so beer call.
Sorry, I saw you
this is
got
Chase.
a beer, but I also see you drinking a Miller Lite, so I'm confused.
Isn't that the new beer?
Well, I was saving the beer to be introduced. The Miller Lite's just because I'm thirsty.
oh wait.
That's your water
hold
beer.
On, hold on, Miss. Oh no,
Yeah,
it dropped again. Dang, we
was
almost
he
had.
calling
Still
in?
Yeah,
nothing?
he's trying to phone in. Let me check.
He's on the road. He's in a car. He's probably with shitty cell service.
He's on one of these robo call centers again. So I'm gonna
we'll
gonna
keep
text
trying.
him again.
Folks, hang in
Okay.
there. We're going to get Andrew on before this episode ends.
He's driving.
ends.
Yeah, he's driving a self-driving car. It's very problematic.
All right, what are you drinking, Johnny?
So Chase actually brought these last week, and instead of saving them for when he comes on again, I'm just going to drink them because it's a really good beer.
Fair enough.
It's Three Floyd's Zombie Dust. This is their big IPA release they do. Have you guys ever had Zombie Dust?
Yes.
Is that Foothills?
Wait.
No, it's Three Floyd's from Munster, Indiana. They're a pretty big brewery
Great
in
guy.
the craft beer world. They just recently doubled their size, so they're starting to push distribution in a lot more states. I bet you guys start seeing them in New York eventually.
Cool.
But the Zombie Dust was like their famous IPA they do. It's like 7 or 8%. I forget now. But the artwork's incredible, and it's just like a real. It's one of the early on real dank, like hoppy beers that was traded, and like the only ones I've gotten before people brought into the state, and I traded rare bottles for. Mm-hmm. But apparently the availability is getting a little bit better,
Nice.
so that's exciting. I got Three Floyds,
And you're
Zombie Dust. The
hydrating
beer
before
nerds
you
know
open
about it,
that
even
with
if you
Miller
guys-
Lite. Smart move. You want to stay hydrated.
Yo, I had to cleanse my palate. Did you guys see the artwork too?
Actually,
It's all-
Miller Lite
the
is a
Zombie
great
King.
palate cleanser. Oh, that's cool.
It
artwork
really
is
is. It's
better
a
than the
nice,
Miller Lite.
light, crisp.
We'll
And he's
make our
holding, like, a
Andrew Yang
Mjolnir
episode
kinda hammer,
picture the label for this beer.
No, we won't.
We really should. Yeah.
That would be so fucking random and awesome.
I mean, that probably would catch.
We
votes.
just cracked
I mean,
another Treehouse
listeners.
beer called "I Have Promises to Keep." I went up to Massachusetts last week, so picked up some
So lame.
Treehouse. This is American Pale Ale. They do one of the brewers there does a beer every year, like as an anniversary to his like wife, and we've had in perpetuity.
gay.
That was one of them.
Oh, really?
And this is
Nice.
a version of that. It's a
didn't know that.
7.9%. American Pale Ale. Apparently, Pale Ales, can they be that high percentage, Johnny?
They are now.
What percent?
7.9? Pale Ale?
I don't think I'd call it a pale ale, but their IPAs aren't really IPAs either. They're something different.
Right.
I mean, they're good.
They call their beer whatever they want, you know.
Oh, wait.
Yeah,
now
as
they're
long as
calling
it's
it a
good
double
beer.
IPA in the description.
All right, that's
Yeah.
Oh,
That
sorry.
makes a
I
lot
read the
more
paragraph wrong. He's saying in 2014 I brewed a pale ale, and then I started messing with it, and now I got this double IPA.
yeah, it's listed as double.
Brewed with copious doses of Nelson and Citra in both kettle and dry hop. Lots of citrus, sweet
Nice.
grapes, gooseberries.
Nice.
It is very like light. The juice notes are not like punchy. It's very like
Yeah.
white wine
I'm
kind
kinda
of vibe.
sick of I'm kind of sick of Citra, to be honest. I think it's been
Citra, yeah, it's not
overutilized.
my favorite hop anymore. I've had way too much of it. Honestly, like at this point, like the other beer I'm drinking right now, at the same time as this, is the 60-minute IPA Dogfish, and like sometimes after I'm having a lot of craft beer that's like just too hoppy and
Yeah, you
and
got to
Yeah.
even your keel.
I just like
quick
this.
news in the craft beer world. Did you hear what happened with Dogfish Head?
No,
Oh man, they sold to Sam Adams to Boston Brewing Company for $300 million. They're calling it a merger, but they really sold because it's a bigger, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The bigger company ends up taking over, but
Yeah,
Yeah.
Dogfish
you don't-
Head
yeah.
is been acquired. So now it's like, think about it. Those
You
are
don't merge
two of
with
the bigger
Disney.
East
Mickey Mouse
Coast
eats
craft
you.
breweries. They've joined forces now,
yeah. Ugh.
bigger in name at least. But
That's
yeah,
crazy.
Dogfish Head is
That's-
the same as Sam.
You know what?
same
You know what's
company as
one
Sam
good
Adams.
thing though, Johnny, about all this. Let's say even a brewery like
$300 million. The guy started it out of college with a fucking loan from the bank.
That's what I'm saying.
And he just made $300 million off of it.
What was the one in North Carolina that
Wicked Weed?
Weeds? Yeah. So
Yeah, it
they
was a couple $100 million.
yeah. So they
think.
got bought, right, and they started as like just a small craft brewery. One of the things I like about craft breweries is it's now almost any real city there's some kind of what you would call a craft beer scene. And like a
Yeah.
city like you live in, Johnny, it's been kind of like growing fast, right? It's like part of the culture now. And I
whole
love the
state
idea
is
that
blowing
as it
up,
gets
yeah.
bigger, the reason people are interested in like the local craft beer vibe goes away. Like I'm not that into going to Blue Point, even though I live pretty close to Blue Point. It's not really Blue Point. I feel like I'm dealing with a non-personable thing. It's a corporation now.
You would rather go somewhere closer.
where I'm like, hey,
That's smaller.
George, you're the brewer. How's it going? I met you last
You know
time.
the guy who made. So that's the hyper local movement, and that's where it's all going. There's very few breweries that are going to sell for a couple $100 million anymore, and if they're Dogfish Head is one of them, obviously, but
Yeah.
like Joymongers is a small brewery. They sell out of their 2 locations. It's a 10-barrel system. They don't even really make enough beer to distribute it. If there's extra, they'll like sell some kegs to the marketplace. But like now that it's nice out, the Greensboro location, it's in the downtown. There's these new apartment buildings that were built right across the street from it. So people just like go get home from work, like park the car, walk the dog, and just head down to the brewery, have a couple of beers, get some tacos
Yeah.
or whatever was on the truck.
Family friendly,
And-
dog
and
friendly.
That's it, though. But like that's it. The brewery is not trying to get bigger. They're not trying to start canning beers and moving truckloads out the back. Like they're like, we can make enough money. There's only like 10 people that work here, or 20 people that work in the whole company. Like we can make enough that they all make a good wage, and that's it. We don't have to
if
do the model where we get so big we end
Infinite
up
growth.
failing.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was just doomed anyways. And a lot of places are figuring that out. Like, like we're not good at that anyways. We're beer nerds who make like weird, funky beers. We're not,
And we're
business
cool people, so
That's
let's be cool to our community, and they'll be cool to
let's
us.
lean into that. Yeah, there's probably cool people who don't have that space in life, and this place can be that. And I love that. I can't wait to move somewhere that's a more
Common thing.
Like in Portland, they have like 150 brew pubs in that city, and it's got the same number of people as the area I live in. And we have like a quarter of that or less.
Yeah, I've been
and
to Portland.
the
It's not
pubs
crowded
aren't-
at all. It's got a nice low key vibe in terms of crowd.
Right.
Yeah.
There's only like 750,000 people. The area
Always
I
a
live,
seat on the
Triad
bus.
Is,
Let me put it that way.
You took the bus there?
yeah,
Yeah.
The area, the Triad I
mean,
live is
while
like
I was
close to 1 million, and we only have a couple dozen breweries, and they have like over 100, and a lot of them are little small mom and pop places. And that's great. There's some that like they have a farm out in the country and they grow their own hops and things, and like that's what people. I want the dankest beer. I want the most local. I want the most sustainable. Like, you do have a lot of choice right now in beer, and it's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
And if you had $1,000 a month extra, I think that would help my industry so much. So obviously, I'm voting for yes.
yeah. So for
Because
example,
the people who are comfortable, that would just be disposable brewery income.
it would be let's go out to the
Food
pub
trucks would
3
blow
times a
up.
week. Why not? You know.
Right? Well, I usually stay home and eat fucking beans and rice with a piece of boiled chicken to save money.
Yeah,
but I don't have to do that. I actually I work full time, and with the
And I
dividend,
got this extra
money.
money,
I'm gonna
yeah.
go get those Asian duck tacos I've always wanted, but are $8.
So when he gets asked how are you going to pay for this, one of the first answers is this very fact, which is for most people who don't have a lot of money, most people are not making a lot of money in the country. In fact, I forget the percentage, but like a disturbing amount is living paycheck to paycheck, you know? Meaning if they had 1 month where they didn't get their paycheck, they're fucked. There's no.
Dude, I'm the same way.
I'm
I own a
exactly the
house
same
and
way.
I have a
If I
pretty
had
good-
1 month where I didn't get any money, I'd be like, okay, cool, I'm good for 1 month. That's it.
Yeah. Well, I hope this month is better, or
Yeah.
I'm fucked. Yeah.
And so if I
That's
knew
most
I had a
people.
guaranteed $1,000 a month, I would probably be a little bit more flexible with how I use my attention. Like, for example, when I bought a new car, in order to help curb that cost, I did Uber driving for a while. One of the things I hated about Uber driving was every time I was driving, I was not doing anything productive towards getting myself to not be an Uber driver. I'm busy not crashing my car. And
Right.
if
That's
I
all
had
you could do.
$1,000
Whereas
bucks
like a
a month,
security guard, you could study or something.
yeah, I mean,
Or
all
if you just had the money.
I was making like $500 a month. I did Uber for 2 months, basically a little bit in a third month, and I made like $500 because I did it like.
But
maybe,
isn't the big fear of like, let's just use the catch-all for this purpose, a conspiracy term of corporate America? Isn't it their big fear is like, what happens if 20 people get together and they pool their 20,000 UBI and they go and they buy a piece of farmland and they just live sustainably on a commune? People could check out of the system. We're still giving them money and we're not making any money off of them. Isn't that kind of a nightmarish fear for the narco-capitalist state that is American machinery and business and all that?
See, this is why I really wish Andrew's cell
would get
phone
back to
service
us,
was working, because like these are great questions for him. No, seriously, like the questions he usually gets asked are this, like.
But you didn't answer that one though.
I'm
That's a
going to
real
get
one.
there.
I'm terrified.
But
by
I'm
it.
saying
okay.
the easy questions are like, that's a lot of money, 330 million people, $1,000 a month. How are you going to pay for it? And he's like, first off, Amazon paid $0 in taxes, so we'll fix things like that. We'll have a value added tax.
Wouldn't it encourage illegal immigration so much more? Like,
Why?
if I have a kid there, my kid will make $1,000 a month.
Oh, yeah.
All I have to do is in 20 years, even if they deport me, my kid will be in 20 years, 18 years, will be making $1,000 a month. They can take care of me.
Well,
my country doesn't have a retirement plan for me. So my chances to get over the line and pop a kid out, isn't there? Wouldn't that encourage a huge? All I have to do is show up and be born there, and you get a share of the dividend. Wouldn't you have to reform?
Maybe
some
that would
immigration
be
rules to,
maybe that would be a change to some like he's marketing it right now as you're a citizen of a country, you have a right to this. Boom, right?
right. But look at the incentive there.
If it became a problem where a bunch of people were like flying as a tourist to the United States, having a baby here, which people do, obviously. I know a lot of people, like not directly, but like through people that literally have a vacation for 3 weeks or 4 weeks or 4 months, depending on how rich they are, and hang out in Florida waiting to have their baby. They have their baby, they settle in, and then they fly back when they can with the baby to whatever country they came from.
So now their kid has the citizenship here. Yeah.
Now, does he get $1,000 a month only if he's living here, or does he get $1,000 a month?
I think if you're a citizen, do expats get it? Yeah, there are a lot of questions, I guess, like that.
I think these would be the more interesting questions to ask
but
him.
I live in Scotland, or I moved to Canada, but I have a company that I own in America that I draw profit from. Do I still get to then?
One of the things
I think that would be a big concern is if you make enough money to make a difference in people's lives, is it enough that they could check out of the system and then you're not getting that input back? I actually like that idea. I think it's
Would that be a bad
really
thing?
romantic. for the economy and for the numbers.
Well,
and
what
all
about that
but
community?
No, personally,
wouldn't they still be?
It's a very Jeffersonian
wouldn't they
ideal
be spending
that
money
we have these small
in the economy,
decentralized farm systems. What?
Wouldn't those decentralized farm systems, these little communes of hippies that collected their $20,000 each month,
50,000. Let's say 50 people get
50
together.
people.
They
Okay.
raise a barn.
How are you feeding 50 people and all the things that would make that commune work? I don't think they're going to self-sustain, even if it's in like a beautiful part of Georgia or some shit. Like they're going to have to be spending money, maybe not as much as what you're saying because they're all in a commune. There's a lot less waste, right?
Well, yeah. What happens when they just start bartering? We grow a lot of crops. They make a lot of chickens. We kind of just trade back and forth because our tax bills are paid through UBI.
So you're picturing like a
seed or equipment,
1,000-acre area that has like a bunch of different communes that are all just like making their own little country.
Sustainability is actually bad for capitalism if it's on our level. On a corporate level, it's better. But on the human level, sustainability is bad because it means you don't need to keep coming back and buying more shit from them. But I personally think it is a great idea, but because it will affect people being able to make money, isn't that? Although I guess it would be good because if a bunch of people just fled cities to go live these rural lives like I'm describing, that might help the job market because as jobs dry up, we need people to check out anyways. That's his big claim.
Could be partly that, yeah. This all comes down to what our boy
Why
Eric...
can't we just work the land? I want to be a farmer with Wi-Fi and soap at the same time.
I want to be a farmer with Wi-Fi. That's going in the front of the episode.
I wouldn't mind riding a tractor. If I had to ride a tractor all day, tilling the fields or whatever, or milking cows all day, if I can listen to the podcasts while I do it or watch Netflix on the tractor because it's a self-driving tractor, like, why not? I wouldn't mind farming then. If you just have to, like, work in the fields in the mud with your back bent over all day, that sucks. But if basically I'm in charge of my drone slaves, my slave drone plantation, like that sounds great.
Aren't we just repeating the same mistakes with drones and robots, and then we'll realize they're people too, and then it'll be a whole other cycle. I mean,
they're robots.
I need to quote Eric Weinstein. Sorry, not the Harvey pronunciation, because basically this whole thing comes down to the technology thing and capitalism.
So
and,
dank. This beer is
maybe
so dank.
the socialism capitalism dichotomy is just no longer like the valid.
It's pronounced dick out of me. Sorry,
the valid cognitive way to think about this. Anyways, Weinstein has said many times that we never knew that capitalism was going to get eaten by its son, technology.
Oh, I love that quote.
It's a great quote because it's like, yeah, technology was born out of capitalism, and technology is great, and lots of things about capitalism are great, but there's no doubt that what technology is capable of, the version of capitalism that we're running right now is not capable of handling. And I guess lots of people have called it capitalism 2.0. It's sort of like saying we need to add something into the system, whether it's a universal basic income or whatever else, to balance this radical change that's going to happen from technology. And we're probably only at the very asymptote, slightly about to bend up part of the curve. All right, Joe, I saw you busy over there on the computer. Did you get Andrew, or is he not going to make it?
I have dead silence.
I mean,
from
we're
him right
we're
now.
getting close to an hour here, so
Yeah.
if we're not hearing anything back, we might not be able to get him.
I got some beeps and some boops from the other end, but that was about it.
Huh.
Yeah,
That's
I don't
pretty
know what to
good.
make of that.
Well, that's a shame.
than
We'll
I'm
still
getting
call
over
this
here.
episode "Conversation with Andrew Yang." I think
I mean, we might be able to get him after.
we'll definitely get so much more clicks, at least initially, if we say "Conversation with Andrew Yang," and then they'll get to 54 minutes and realize that we weren't serious about trying to call him.
We weren't able to get him.
I mean, we're no
he
longer
might be
serious.
on.
What did
I think
I say?
said earlier he might.
He might.
We might.
Oh, he
get
might
him.
still. He's
Look,
trying.
we're
to
gonna
get
we
him.
might-
usually
Yeah, we might get.
we might still get him.
We might get Donald Trump on next week. We might. I don't know where he's going to be. Do you?
Oh, I mean, our people tell us basically. If you guys didn't know how Thunk Tank works, I'll give you a quick sum up of the week. Basically, on a Monday, I get a call and they tell me, "All right, looks like we're going to be, show up to the studio Friday at 6:30, and we'll have Frank in our tech area, make sure the Skype's working. We get Johnny on. We have like a green room where we have a bunch of sandwiches and stuff like that. It's all set up for us, ready to go. And then, of course, the call into Andrew was supposed to happen, but I guess it's a cell coverage thing.
Robots.
Yeah, networks and landlines, DSL, coaxial cables, all this.
I meant to tell you guys, like I've been paying the rent for the studio out of my pocket, but the $12 of Patreon money is
You're gonna pay my rent, bro? Word.
No, in the studio, Joe. In the Thunk Tank studio.
UBI, I got news for you.
That's
what
what
are
I'll
you
do
doing
with
over there,
UBI.
Joe?
I'll
What?
promote the podcast.
What are you doing?
What's up?
What are you doing over there? No luck, no contact.
Nothing. I don't know what happened. Last I heard, he was talking to the call center, but we don't know where that is because it's automated. And therein lies the problem.
You sure you pronounced it right? You were asking for Andrew Yang.
How do you pronounce it?
I think that's how you say it. So, what do you think of his supporters, though? Because he's been getting shit for the fact that he's getting. It seems to be the fabled Bernie Bros of the last election seem to be in the Yang Gang.
Well, so there's that version of the Yang Gang, but he's also been criticized as having
attracting a lot
alt-right
of the
support.
libertarian.
Have you heard about that, Johnny?
What?
He's been criticized as having alt-right support.
My favorite is Andrew
Yeah,
Yang
I mean, that's silly.
is a neo-Nazi because he hates robots. That's one I've heard.
Really?
Yep. Because he hates the robots.
He also has gotten in trouble with circumcision. Have you heard about that?
Which is not anything what he's about.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's
Ben
not
Shapiro asked him about that. He's like,
circumcision.
that's weird that came up.
It's a weird thing to bring up, but I like that. It shows how he's so not a politician because, like, no politician's going to comment on circumcision because it's inflammatory.
Like,
and
why? Who cares?
It doesn't get no one's demanding you take a stance on it. But I think he has said like I have nothing against it. Or
Yeah, he had a
if you
pretty
do it for
reasonable
religious
response.
reasons. Like that's why he's like I just don't believe in it. It's like that's totally different than as a I don't think it's a policy platform of him to like ban it.
But then people accused him of secretly signaling the alt-right that he's like an anti-Semitic by saying he's against circumcision, which is obviously a big Jewish tradition. And then he's like, yo, what the fuck? Somebody randomly asked me about circumcision, and literally all he said was, I don't think we should market it to parents as like a necessary forced medical thing. You don't have to do it. I'm not going to say you can't do it or it's
So here's
illegal.
the question: what happens to children who are like remanded to the state on birth? Because that can happen.
I think the
Like, if
default
you
should be no circumcision.
But what is it right now? Because if it is circumcision, then
I think
that's
it probably
his stance.
defaults as circumcision because the hospital thinks we'll get more money for it.
I mean,
maybe they
I don't know
even-
if that's why they do it. They might.
Well,
do it
they might
because
have their
for a
own
long
reason
time,
for
the
it, but that's the
perceived
reason it
medical
evolved
wisdom
that way, right?
It's probably assumed that it is cleaner and safer because it was before the advent of soap and stuff.
Before we have showers.
Right. Like, yeah, I'm sure it would have been cleaner 150 years ago. But, yeah, that was a weird thing. I don't know why he waded into that one. But
Are you
I don't really care
circumcised?
that much. Mine's already settled. I'm not getting any procedures on my
circumcised?
junk at this point in life.
Are you
Well,
circumcised
you'll
or
find-
not?
If you come visit me and we drink enough beer, you'll find out.
I am circumcised.
But,
I'll just say that.
Did Johnny threaten to cut your
All right,
dick?
breaking news, everyone. Luke has been snipped. Luke has
I'm
been
saying like it
snipped.
really doesn't affect me this issue because like I'm certainly not going to go back to the hospital
What
and be
is
like
it
put more
culturally
skin
like?
on there.
This is all right. Let's
is
just
a funny
dive into
thing,
the
though.
TMI part of it since we're talking about foreskins now. Your girlfriend's from a traditionally Muslim country, let's say. Isn't that not part of their culture? Aren't they not that big into the circumcision?
Yeah, no, most. Oh God, I was gonna say most dicks.
Is she
she's seen.
uncomfortable with it? Are you
No,
the
go ahead,
first?
say
Are you
that.
the first?
I did.
Are you the first? Let's say skinhead she's run into, or is she
not the-
like
a
a lot of turtlenecks before you?
No, you
know
shouldn't.
what I'm
Whatever
saying?
you're about to say.
I may have been the first skin.
That's not also not a thing. you
That
should
is
say.
so not the question I asked. But all right then. Did
I
you
may have
pause
been
it?
the first non-circumstances. So
circumcision.
Try to pause
circumcised.
Circumcision.
Huh?
Is he trying to pause the recording?
No, I'm playing with a penny.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
He gets anxious.
This is the
This
kind
is
of money
gold.
I
We
move
can't-
around with.
people-
Oh, by the way,
yeah,
that's
people
another
can't miss
Andrew
it.
Yang thing. He says we should stop making the penny. It costs more than 1 cent to make this penny. That makes no sense.
Literally.
Pun intended.
Makes negative sense.
All right. There's no such
That's a
thing,
real
as,
thing,
as
though.
a cent. Oh wait, there's no such thing as a penny. It's a cent.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, that was like
we learned
episode
that
2 or some shit like that, right?
No,
Yeah,
probably
I pay
like 20,
attention
but I
sometimes.
still got you bitches hard.
Oh, that was 38.
Disney episode. Oh.
Yeah, those aren't pennies. Those are holographic mind readers. Oh, don't pick them up.
So it wouldn't be an Andrew Yang episode without talking about some of the other candidates, or like just generally like what's going on the
This is an
Democratic
Andrew
side.
Yang episode. We'll do a Democratic primary episode after the first debate.
Well,
I don't want to
let me
talk
at
about
least
anything
ask it
else.
this way: if you had to vote today, and you were picking who the candidate would be, who would you pick?
Me personally, I'm sold on Andrew Yang's overall approach, character, integrity, and outlook. So I'd vote for him.
Me too. Currently,
I'd vote for Mickey.
I did hear the 3-hour podcast with Tulsi Gabbard, and she was on Joe Rogan's podcast
What
maybe like
the-
a week ago.
Oh, okay.
Oh, she was back on.
And-
Because she had been on.
I know.
about a
I didn't
year
hear
ago,
the
right?
original one. I heard the new one.
Oh, see, I heard
And-
the original one, not the new one.
So I do have to say that I have not done nearly as much research about her as I have done about Andrew Yang. I've listened to like probably 20 hours worth of podcast interviews of Andrew Yang on various podcasts.
Jesus. That's a lot.
I mean, over the past
isn't
year
she
and a
really
half.
religious though?
I think she's Hindu.
She,
No, I don't think so.
yeah, she's not.
She got in a
gonna
lot of trouble. She got in a lot of trouble for like some gay conversion stuff she did with her dad when she was young.
Yeah,
through,
when
like,
she
some
was in
church
college.
group.
Tulsi?
Yeah. Yeah.
She's. I think I read today that she's Hindu, though. I mean,
Yeah, but that's.
she's Samoan, and
that's
she's really into like the
Yeah, but-
aloha vibe. Like,
But
you
what
know,
Johnny just said is
peace
what
be-
voters think about her, which is why she's never going to win.
Well, in any
Right?
case,
Yeah.
I'm saying she was the second most
I don't know if
reasonable
it's true or
person
not,
that seemed
But
like to my ear at least that when they talked. This is why I love Rogan's podcast. It's really hard to be a politician for 3 hours
when she
on
was
there.
on the first one that she was on with Rogan,
I didn't
when-
hear that one, but yeah.
Well, when he actually asked her about, and this was before, as far as I know, before Yang was running, UBI came up, and he asked her about it, and she said, "Yeah, that's not something I've read enough about."
Mm-hmm.
She said, "There's definitely it seems like from what I have read that there's a lot of positives and there's maybe some negatives." And all she said was, "Yeah, I have to read more."
At least that's
before."
honest, yeah.
And it's you compare that to a lot of what's going on, and it's a world of difference, right? And like you say, that sort of at least is honest, right?
I think
It's
there's a
genuine.
change in general vibe between the Bidens of the world, who are just established politicians. They're like fucking virtuosi, like they're like the classical violinist who plays the concerto perfectly in the political realm. But that might not be working so much, and I think
No, they're not.
Donald
that.
Trump
They're
changed
Bob
the
Dylan.
rules by
Who-
being so fucking just normal.
No,
You know what I mean by
they're-
normal? Like
Joe
he's not
Biden- Joe
performing an
Biden
act.
is-
Well,
as
yeah,
much.
he's unfetteredly horrible.
Yeah,
he's not hiding
and
that he's
and by
horrible.
being horrible, we did not think he was signaling to us. We thought he was being himself. It's called counter signaling. You're more honest to your friends. So, like, if I show up at your house,
yeah.
Joe,
Well, and that's what appeals to voters.
and
He
you go
seems
like,
he's
"Oh, how's it
people's
going?"
friend.
and I go, "Go fuck yourself." Like that version of me being more honest is a way for me to be signal to you that we're close friends. Like I don't even
Right.
have to do the fake. Oh, it's a beautiful day. The weather really got warm. Blah blah blah. Like
Have you seen Frank?
instead, I walk
No,
in. I'm
fuck
like, I
Frank.
fucking hate my job, and I crack a beer and like
That is what happened today.
I know. I do hate my job. Fucking hate kids. They suck.
I
If I had $1,000 a month, half my students wouldn't have a teacher.
Wow, that's a hard line you're taking there.
All
why
right,
I
so
like Andrew Yang.
that's a sign that it's not great for
Like,
the
share, and
economy,
subscribe.
'cause now we've lost a valuable asset for the kids. And
No,
you're
I'm
just
gonna
gonna
use
sit
my
on your
time in
ass
a
and
better
get
way.
drunk and stoned because we gave you free money. Great argument for UBI, Luke.
We
I'm
don't
gonna
have
hang
time
out and
for-
Skype
Hey,
with my friends.
do we
and
have time
drink
for
beer.
The
drunk
weed
tank?
dealers need money too, Johnny.
Johnny, do we have time for a drunk tank?
We can do a quick one.
Do you want to do a drunk tank?
We could end this episode and then do a quick drunk check. And I'll tell you what, if
He said a quick drunk tank.
Drunk tank? I think we're there,
That's a
guys.
sign.
I think we're
It's
there.
a
I mean, I
sign.
got a lot of beer left, so
Yeah,
and I'll tell you this: if Andrew Yang is going to call in, I'd much
Tell you
prefer.
what. Yeah, we would.
like,
we should
that
hang
he's-
out a little longer in case we
Yeah,
hear from
he's
him.
definitely. Joe, are you fucking with me? Am I going to speak a real sentence or okay?
Okay, thank you. I don't know if we're still playing the hang up game or not, but that was like the worst attempt by Joe. He basically pitched forward in his chair and was ham-handedly scrambling for the mouse, let's say, for way too long, like 30 seconds, to be able to hang up first. But that was our Andrew Yang episode. Hope you liked it. If not, what do you want from us? I'm not running for president. I don't know how to package this all to make it sound good. We just think he's an interesting guy, and I think the most interesting on the Democratic side of the ticket currently. I haven't looked into everybody, but like I said, I like his approach. His mathematical, statistic-minded approach of, well, what's the data say, and then work from that. And I think there's a big difference in that a businessman coming into politics, like a real one, not a Donald Trump type who just is a licenser. He really doesn't run businesses. He licenses and brands his name or whatever he does, but in my opinion. But because in business, you have to figure out, well, what's the cost? What can we sell? Like, what are the actual numbers? Not, this is a great product that looks great and sounds great. No. Is it people actually going to buy it? Are we actually going to make money on? Root it in real world results rather than politicians, career politicians, which all you have to do is keep getting reelected. Whether you did a good job or not, if you're perceived to have done a good job, you get to keep your job and you get reelected, which in our country means, if 40% of the people go out and vote, voting age people, and you get half of that vote, it's like you get 22% of the country, 23% of the country that you have to win over, or your local area or constituents. So that's a way different than, trying to get a winning market. So it is a different, I think, approach rather than what's the broadest, lowest common denominator net I can cast. What can I say that will get me the result I want versus what can I say that will get the results we need? That might be a little too hokey of a soundbite, but I hope my faith isn't misfounded in him. But I think he could do a lot of good things and inject that more practical mindset into politics because it's so broken right now of just sides yelling at each other and nothing happening. So that's my little rant at the end of the episode. Let me know what you think. Tell me to shut the fuck up. Whatever you want. We just want to be engaged. Thanks for listening to the Think Tank, and here are these idiots.
I was just hovering over the hang up button looking at Johnny.
We'll keep this a short post Andrew Yang episode.
You barely got through that sentence.
The 2 tree houses, 2 dogfish heads.
Yeah. So all I want to say about Andrew Yang, I'm sorry we couldn't get him on. We'll try to do an FAQ. Maybe if he calls, he's going to try to call in for Drunk Tank. So if you're not subscribed,
head over to patreon.com/ThunkTankPodcast.
Yeah, get in on that.
You can.
Allegedly, we're going to try to get him on. We can't make promises, but
I mean, at this point, we can't.
We're going to try.
The studio is going to export this file right to our and publishing schedule, so we really can't get him on this. We'll probably have to put him on the Drunk Tank. So you'll have to head over to Patreon and subscribe there if you want to hear us interview Andrew Yang. We're going to ask him all these interesting questions, like
everything that we just
$1,000 a month
about,
sounds great, but what about the commune problem?
Yeah, what about the Nazis? Yeah, we're going to get into all of that. All the questions you want to ask him. Yes, we'll be there.
Did I miss anything? Oh,
you're good.
Andrew Yang is an Asian guy running for president, and he'll give you $1,000 a month if you vote for him.
I think you opened with that.
Yeah. I'm bookending it.
Oh, okay. All right. See you there.
Thanks for listening. Sorry if you didn't learn anything, but go fuck yourselves.
Yeah, you should have come here.
All right. Thanks, everyone, for listening to the Think Tank podcast. Hope you enjoyed it. If you want to help us out, please consider leaving a rating or a review wherever you listen to podcasts, and share it with people you think might like it. And if you really want to support us, you can go over to patreon.com/ThunkTankPodcast. We have links to this in the episode description and other places. And for as little as $1 an episode, you can help us keep the lights on. And you also get access to a very special Drunk Tank feed of episodes. So every few episodes, we'll have a few more beers and record an extra 20 to 30 minutes of extra thunky, silly whateverness. So there's a separate RSS link you can get from there, and if you put that into a podcast player, you'll get your own separate feed of only the Drunk Tanks. I think we have about 6 or 7 of them out already, and more to come. Thanks for listening, and stay funky.